Hello everyone, I am Josh and welcome to this Sims 4 house building video. Now today I am building an industrial house, which is definitely something different for me since I haven't done one yet. And the idea behind this house is that it was an abandoned factory or warehouse or something of this sort, and then someone came along one day and converted it into a house. So that was kind of the idea behind the design of this house. And it turns out really well. I really love the inside especially. So, as you can see here, I basically started out with a giant rectangle, and now I'm adding some smaller rectangles to it. They add a nice bit of detail to the outside. And I also put some of those metal support beams from Get to Work in those little indents, which look really cool, so you'll see that as we go along. Now, I'm already starting on the roof, which goes through a bunch of different phases, and I actually settle on the final roof quite a lot later on, because I experiment with a flat roof a little bit, and it just looks terrible, so I change it up. You can see here, I'm putting on the flat roof in the center, and it just really does not look too good, so I ended up just scrapping the flat roof and putting another roof on top. It kind of looks slightly like a barn roof, but not really, because like the building doesn't look like a barn, and then the details I put on the roof don't make it look like a barn. But if the roof is by itself, it would look like a barn roof. But anyway, that's not too important. It turns out pretty good, so trust me on that. So as you can see here, still trying out the flat roof, putting on some metal roofing, and now I'm finding those metal support beams. There they are. So I'm using those, and I do change the color of them to black later on, but for now I'm making them light gray, which I really didn't like, so I do change that. So as you can see, they look really cool. I put them in like all the little indents and also on the outside corners. They just add this kind of look to the house that makes it look a lot more industrial. I also put a couple of them inside too, which you'll see later on. Now I'm going to try to make the flat roof work a bit better by putting a half wall around it, though don't think it helped too much. And adding another little part of the house here, so there's a bit more space inside. Now the final house ends up having 2 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms. But when I say 2 bedrooms, the bedrooms aren't actually separate rooms. The whole house is basically like one big open room. Obviously the bathrooms are closed in, but the 2 bathrooms are the only 2 rooms that have doors. So the rest of the house is just all open, which I guess if you don't like that, you can pretty easily change it by building some walls and doors in. But I thought it looked really cool. So you can see here some brick has now appeared on the house. I wasn't paying attention to when it happened, but it's there now. There's also a nice little balcony here off of what will be the bedroom. So that's pretty nice. And I put in a bunch of arched windows around the house. So, you got nice light coming in, plenty of big windows. Because I feel like a kind of factory, or I guess a warehouse wouldn't have windows, but a factory would. I feel like the factory would have like big arched windows or something. If it was an older factory, like newer factories aren't that way, but that's the idea anyway. Also putting in some industrial stairs, which also came from Get to Work, so it looks pretty cool. A lot of the stuff I used in this house came from Get to Work because, that pack had a lot of industrial things. I think it was really the science career that had a more industrial building that went with it, so they included a whole bunch of industrial objects and things. So it all looked pretty cool. So the first floor was really annoying me because all these little parts that protrude from the house were all separate rooms, so I was trying to make the whole first floor a single room, which took me a few tries because I kept messing up with the custom wall tool. So here we go, and beautiful. That was one room on the downstairs, and yeah, every time I dragged out the floor it would remove the walls, which was really annoying. But anyway, I got it all figured out in the end, putting in some more windows, and also you may notice this small kind of white part of the house that has that flat roof. That is kind of like my idea, like it would be in addition to the house, so that wasn't part of the original factory, but that's where the entrance ends up going on that white part. So it's pretty cool. It's much more modern than the rest of the house. Like I have big glass windows on that part, so you'll see that as it comes along. So I was trying to put some details on the flat roof to make it look a bit better, but it still was not looking good in my opinion. I don't know, I just wasn't happy with the flat roof, so I work on it. So adding in some pieces of flooring underneath the roof because there wasn't any and it looked a bit weird. Also putting in the front door there and getting in some large windows so you can see some big windows around that part of the house and some more arched windows, so it's nice and lit up inside. On the first floor I put in some small windows, as you can see, so not so big windows on the first floor, but that's the way I felt like a factory or warehouse would be. you know, because you wouldn't have giant windows on the first floor. So, you know, also I just put a bathroom in downstairs, so that's nice to have. And putting the bed, so that's where the bedroom is going to be. So you can see it's definitely not a separate room. It's just like on a balcony that overlooks the rest of the house. So, you know, not too much privacy, though. Again, you could build a wall if you wanted to. Here on the third floor is a second bathroom and also another bedroom. So you'll see that as it comes along. Put some doors into the bathrooms, also putting in some columns, which look pretty cool. I add some more in later. And all the interior walls are also brick, but like where the bathrooms are, which would have been added on after, you know, this warehouse had been built or whatever, I made them kind of the white paint, so you can kind of tell that those bathrooms were added on after the warehouse was built or whatever. So I thought it looked kind of cool. And also adding the white paint inside of that new addition part. So, you know, I think it looks pretty cool. And also put in a brick foundation. And oh yeah, here we go. So I tried to add some fake front and back roofs, you know, so you don't entirely notice the flat roof. Although I ended up just ditching the flat roof completely later on. So yeah, but it was a good try. You know, it just looked kind of weird, so I ended up getting rid of it. Also I'm changing the color of the metal support beams on the outside, so they're black, which looks quite a bit nicer. And I also darkened all the windows because I thought that looked a bit better too. So it's coming along nicely here. Also changing out the doors that lead to the balconies and putting in some ventilation grills and some little awning things over the doors. Also some nice flower boxes to make it look a little bit nicer outside. And some trees, because why not have some trees? I don't know why I was putting trees out this early on, but I decided to do that. And I also put in some concrete in the front. You know, it looks a bit nicer with landscaping later on, so obviously it looks a bit weird now, but that all will change. There you go. The flat roof is now gone because I didn't like it. So I mess around with the chimneys a lot, which you'll see in a moment, but I also add this little balcony off the third floor, which is pretty cool. So you can see that here. It looks like, you know, whoever renovated the house kind of cut out the roof for a little balcony or something. I thought it was pretty neat. So there you go. Little nice little view out that balcony. And getting in some chimneys here. So this is where the chimney fiasco begins. I spend way too long picking the chimneys, but I guess I eventually figure it out. So I go for larger chimneys and smaller chimneys, and then small and large together, but that looks hideous. And adding more and getting rid of, it just didn't work out until I decided just to put two small ones on the top there. So that looked the best. So yeah, so now we're moving to the inside, and the whole first floor living area is like one big open room. So the kitchen, living room, and dining room is just one big open room, which looks really cool. So you can see here I'm putting in the counters in the kitchen, and these little weird nooks in the corners I end up using for storage, which looks really cool. And, you know, it turns out really well. I love the kitchen in this house. You know, at first, like right now, it looks really weird, but it definitely gets a lot better. So I was going to put in two refrigerators next to each other, but then I decided on just having one refrigerator and an oven next to it, because I wanted to put the oven in the island, but it just looked terrible, as you'll see in a moment. There it is. Yeah, that looks really bad, because the ovens have that back piece that sticks up, so it just does not work on an island. So yeah. So you can see there, that's the final appliance solution. And then to fix the issue at the center of the kitchen, just being kind of all open, I put in a nice table there. So like you would imagine that being like a prep space or something, not just a table in the kitchen. So yeah, also put in a nice tile floor and some lighting. So that's all pretty good and dandy. And well, yeah, it's turning out pretty nicely. I also got some track lighting in. Interesting about the track lighting is that I've never used it before, which is a fun fact right there. And also adding in a little bit more storage and some other details throughout the kitchen, you know, so it all looks pretty cool. Also putting in, you know, like a little container full of kitchen utensils or whatever, like spatulas and whatever. Also put in a china cabinet and some stools, and I'm also putting in a nice little counter and with a dishwasher in it, so your Sims can utilize the dishwasher, which is always nice, and a nice trash can. So yeah, pretty much that's the kitchen there. It turned out really well, though. I really like the way it turned out. It kind of has a nice, definitely an industrial vibe to it, which is what I really like. You know, the brick walls and the gray tile and the butcher block counters, just like all the warm colors work really well together. Also put up some of my favorite posters on the wall there from Cool Kitchen. And yeah, so that's the kitchen finished, and now we're moving on to the living room area, and I'm finding my favorite concrete flooring, the one that kind of has that polished look to it, so it kind of has a glossy look, so when you rotate the camera, the light kind of reflects off of it. It's really gorgeous. And so that's what I put on the flooring, and I got some nice couches and a chair. All looks pretty good. And I love that lamp there. You'll see I use it throughout the house a lot. The one next to the chair there. Yeah, really nice lamp. And also a nice bookshelf, and these two matching paintings look really cool together to go on either side of the fireplace, and also some plants. And I love these coffee tables as well. I use them a lot. I actually never realized there were multiple color options for them, and then I realized there are a huge amount of color options. So I made them black. And also playing around with some of the giant rugs, since I never get a chance to use them, because I don't usually build houses with so much open space. So I ended up settling in on that rug, which looks pretty cool. And you'd want a nice big rug in this house because the whole flooring is all cold concrete, at least on the first floor. So you'd probably want something warmer and softer on the floor. So, yeah, putting in some other details, and you got that nice big piece of pottery over there. And, some nice lamps on the side tables. It all looks pretty nice. It actually has a really nice cozy look to it, even though it's an industrial house. It just looks really cozy. I don't know why. So, it is about this point where I realize that I don't have a TV in the house. Which is a bit unfortunate, so I just kind of tack one on there. It's a bit over the window, but it's okay. So putting in some more details and moving on to the dining room. Again, I'm using my favorite chairs there, those kind of plastic chairs. They look really cool, those clear ones. And doing something interesting with the lighting here. You can see it's kind of 3 of those lights put in some kind of arrangement, which I thought looked really cool. Also got some nice yellow chairs for accents on the ends, and some pop art on the wall, and some bookshelves in these little corners, because I really had no idea what else to do there. So, I thought some bookshelves worked pretty well. And I also put a little shelving unit here. You can see where I put that table. So I'm just finding the shelves. There they are. I used the ones from Outdoor Retreat for some reason. I think it's because they kind of had a rustic vibe to them. You can see like that wood looks kind of worn. Like maybe those shelves have been there for a long time. Who knows. Putting some details on the shelves, and it all looks pretty nice. Got some little paintings and some plants, and yeah. And also some more pop art. And also I put in a stereo and a bar, which you'll see in a moment. I didn't really know what to do with the bar at first, so I just kind of threw it under the stairs there. Not really under the stairs, next to the stairs, so there it is. Pretty nice little feature there, and also put in some artwork on the walls, so it kind of spices it up a bit. Also got another bookshelf over here. I'm just looking for a whole bunch of stuff. There it is. So, and a nice, one of those lamps, of course. Now, with this area, I had no idea what I wanted to do with this area, so I ended up kind of splitting it in 2. So one half is the entrance, and the other half is kind of like a little artist's area. Also, I put a piano upstairs. A little artist's area, so, there's like an art easel in there. You'll see when I get to it. I also put some wood flooring on the 2nd and 3rd floors, like just like some kind of bare wood planks. Not planks, but, it's not like a finished wood. It doesn't look finished anyway. It looks more rustic and kind of like it would just have been there. There you go. So I just put in some stuff in the painting area, which you probably just saw for a split second there. Also putting a mirror and a little side table in the entrance with some lighting. And, pretty simple entrance. Got a little mat on the floor. I'm also putting in some of these steel beams in the living room, as you can see here, and I carry them all the way up, so that's nice to have. What else am I doing here? Putting some more details in the kitchen, and some pots and pans on the wall there. And yeah, so it looks pretty good. Got the shoe rack in, just all the stuff you'd expect from me to do, because I always throw in all those little stuff and little knickknacks. A little window for the bathroom, which is nice to have. And you can see this is the, I don't know, I thought that this would be the master bathroom, so like for the bedroom upstairs, they'd come downstairs and use this bathroom, and then the other bathroom on the 3rd floor would be for that bedroom. But I guess if you want to on the 2nd floor, like technically you could close in that huge open like space there. I mean, that would kind of ruin the look of this house, but you could close that up and like put a lot of bedrooms and bathrooms in the 2nd floor if you wanted to. So that's a fun fact. And putting in some wardrobes in those little nooks. And you can see the bed is on an angle, which I thought was kind of interesting because, I don't know, I like the look of that as opposed to it being like up against the railing. I don't know. I mean, again, if you download the house, you can easily change that. Another one of those lamps is there now, as you can see, and some chairs in that corner. Also putting some blinds on the windows. You probably want some privacy. And, yeah, also you see I put a TV in, so they can watch TV. I'm not sure if in The Sims 4, Sims will watch TV in bed, because I know in The Sims 3 they do that, but I don't know what The Sims do in The Sims 4, but if they can watch TV from bed, that's an option. So, putting in a bunch of details, a little hamper, and a little plant, and some folded shirts. So there you go, pretty much the bedroom done. And over on this side is going to be a office area, so got a nice L-shaped desk, a computer. I love that little yellow lamp. Also got a chess table up here, so if your Sims want to practice their logic skill, they can do that. I also put a fish tank on the 3rd floor. I was going to put it here, but I didn't. Also, there's a guitar and a punching bag, so your Sims can let out some steam if they are a bit frustrated. Yeah, so putting in some lighting here. Plenty of lights. It looks pretty cool. And I also put in some more of those posters from Cool Kitchen stuff on the wall there. I really love those because they come in so many different variations, which I really like about them. And a yellow couch, which adds a pop of color. And also a little side table in that nook. And a bunch of little stuff on and under the desk. So, it looks pretty realistic. Like someone's actually working there. And yeah, another one of those little lamps. And moving the piano around and putting some form of artwork on the wall. There it is. And yeah, so I'm pretty sure that's the 2nd floor done. Not too much to it. It's just, it's kind of like all open, but turned out pretty good. Now we're going to be moving on, I don't know, I think to the 3rd floor. Yeah, we are. Okay, so you can see we have this bathroom on the 3rd floor. There's no windows in it, which is a little depressing, but it's just a bathroom. I mean, it could be worse. So, got a tub shower combination, a toilet, and a sink. Everything you could possibly need. And yeah, so there you go. Bathroom completed. And now up here is going to be kind of like a kid's room. I guess it could be a teen's bedroom too. Or if you really wanted to, you could put a double bed in here, close it off, and make this the master. So, that's obviously an option. So I'm also putting in a whole bunch of posters on the wall, make it look quite nice and detailed. Also, another one of those Cool Kitchen posters showed up. And yeah, some nice mirror, some lighting, and overall just looks pretty nice. Also some toys. I got like a big teddy bear there, and also put a dinosaur in. There it is. Make it look a little bit more child friendly because it is a little bit dark up there, but it's all right. And yeah, also on this side, I just put a fish tank in and a little sitting area, so your Sims can sit and look at the fish if they want to. Also, another one of those lamps showing up again, and a mirror there. So pretty much that's the interior finished, and now we're going to be moving on to the balcony area. So this is the main outdoor area. The lot this house is built on is pretty big, so you could technically have a pretty nice backyard, but I decided to leave the lot empty and put this here because I thought it looked kind of cool. So we have a hot tub and a hedge wall around, and this is kind of like a second floor balcony that has like the whole outdoor space going on up here. I thought it looked really cool. Got some seating and some lighting. It's obviously nice to have nice outdoor lights. And yeah, also now I think I'm going to be getting on landscaping, so getting in a few more trees around the place. I know it's kind of like the desert, so there wouldn't be that many trees, but I like trees, so putting some in. Also getting in a bunch of kind of fern or palm leaf plants, whatever those are, some rocks and some flowers, and putting in some nice dirt edging, so everything looks a bit more realistic. And yeah, putting in some dirt, and I'm gonna get a nice little flower bed area over here, because I wanted to fill in that area with something. So got some ferns and whatever those palm plants are, and it looks pretty nice. And I'm also going to put this little wall here. So the idea behind this fence piece is like the whole property was at one time fenced in, but now there's only like one piece of fence left. I don't know, it might look weird, but I thought it was kind of cool. Also putting in some stairs, which are nice to have, and we're kind of wrapping up here. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, I'd greatly appreciate it if you'd check out my channel. I make loads more house builds and other Sims videos. And yeah, adding in some final details, like a nice fountain and some rocks around it. And yeah, anyway, I hope you enjoyed, and yeah, I'm just delaying, just putting off. Okay, here we go. Hope you enjoyed. Bye.